Welcome back. Catherine opens chapter 3 with a quote from the TV show West Wing. You can pause and read that if you want. Kind of fun. She actually begins chapter 3 talking about something really important and world-changing. A book written in 1776 by a true economics nerd by the name of Adam Smith. The name of his book? Wealth of Nations. In this book, he first laid out the wonders of capitalism in a fair, open, honest, democratic system. Catherine says that his economic ideas dovetail beautifully with Thomas Jefferson's political ideas. And so Adam Smith's writings became the framework for our capitalist philosophy. She immediately says, theory and practice are rarely in sync. Do we practice what Adam Smith preached? Not even close. Catherine points out that Smith's economic ideas, like Thomas Jefferson's political ideas, were meant to maximize liberty and opportunity for the largest number of people possible. Well, those ideas were not at all dilly-dilly with rich elitist a-holes like Edmund Burke, who believed that they were the only people entitled to wealth, power, and privilege. Besides, they already had their own economic ideology based upon wealth generated by global merchants, which is why their ideology was called mercantilism. I'm going to want to talk more about mercantilism whenever I nerd whisper Tom Hartman's book Unequal Protection, because there's a lot of stuff that you were never taught in school. For example, did you know that the British East India Company owned, for all intents and purposes, the southern part of America from Virginia to the Mississippi River? Did you know that when the Pilgrims came to America, they traveled aboard a ship owned by the East India Company, a ship called the Mayflower? Catherine points out how Smith's ideas were a big threat to Edmund Burke-type elitists. In fact, she says, Wealth of Nations was a blasphemous challenge to their wealth and power, which is why Burke types spared no effort or expense in trying to put their mercantilist system back in place. In a nutshell, Catherine says, what we call capitalism is in fact the American version of British mercantilism. What complexifies this situation enormously is the fact that what is supposed to be capitalism is actually a modern-day American version of old-time British mercantilism that some nerds call corporatism and other nerds call neoliberal economics. One very important thing that nerds in a field called semantics figured out a long time ago is that words don't just have definitions, they also in a big way define what something is. And the fact of the matter is that probably all of our so-called leaders in Washington, no doubt every justice on the Supreme Court, all of the Wall Street financial guys, probably every expert at the Federal Reserve System, no doubt all of the corporate bigwigs, everybody in corporate media, and virtually every educator in America, from the most fancy titled professor at the most elite university, all the way down to the most broke-ass elementary school teacher in America, all call this corrupt system capitalism. If the lefty liberal socialists up on their high horses would pull their heads out of their asses and actually look at the system we have, they would see that it is not in fact capitalism. And when they're railing against capitalism, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The vast majority of Americans are unaware of this because they live their entire lives never seeing anything but real capitalism, wherever they live, all the people they do business with. You're not taught about this in school. You're sure as hell not going to be told about this from corporate media. The fact of the matter is, it is only the biggest corporations, mostly multinational corporations, that have what Catherine and other nerds call incestuous relationships with people in power, and are rewarded trillions of dollars worth of favors in exchange for the mere billions of dollars that they spend keeping those people in power. If you think I'm exaggerating when I say trillions of dollars worth of favors, there's an awesome nerd by the name of David K. Johnston who has written entire books documenting the favors that the corporate rich get in exchange for support of politicians who, by the way, aren't even considered corrupt anymore. That's the most mind-blowing thing about this to me. This crap has been going on for so long, has become so deeply entrenched, so institutionalized, so a part of America's elite culture, that virtually none of America's so-called elite think there's anything wrong with it anymore. It's just same old, business as usual, just your regular. When awesome elites complain, they're just ignored by the rest of the elites, as well as corporate media, of course. Back to Catherine's book, I actually need to back up a little bit and mention that in Wealth of Nations, after Smith explained the wonders of capitalism in a fair, open, honest, democratic system, he explained the problems that could result if people or corporations wanted to take advantage of the system. Of course, if it was just a person, it wouldn't be that big of a problem, or a small company, not that big of a problem. Big corporations were an entirely different matter. As Catherine points out, Smith treated big business very differently in his writings, saying it was led by an order of men that generally have an interest to deceive and even to oppress the public, which is why Smith insisted that laws and regulations had to be put in place to protect the public. Catherine goes on to say that Adam Smith supported necessary government regulations, labor and human rights, public education, and progressive taxation, which is the more money you get, the higher percentage of taxes you pay, to ease the economic and social disparities he knew would occur. The bottom line, Adam Smith clearly stated that a strong government acting through democratic and legal institutions was the only entity capable of challenging such corporate power. Obviously, our government was not capable of dealing with big corporate power. If you're wondering, how the hell did things go so wrong? Catherine conveniently tells us. It began with Alexander Hamilton, who was Secretary of the Treasury under our first president, George Washington. In a nutshell, Hamilton, along with everybody else, knew how weak our brand new country was. Still pretty much just a cluster of former colonies. Hamilton knew that adopting Adam Smith's approach would not result in a strong country very fast. Catherine says, Britain's mercantile system was elitist and abusive, but Hamilton knew it was the engine that drove England's powerful economy. As Secretary of the Treasury, he planned to use that very system to propel America onto the world's stage. Catherine adds, both his plan and its execution were brilliant. Nobody can argue that Hamilton's plan did in fact make the United States of America a world power in short order. Catherine goes on for a couple pages talking about how he centralized power in Washington, how he made essentially partnerships with corporations, leading to what's today called crony capitalism. The bottom line, a couple pages later, Catherine says, Hamilton's pragmatism and business acumen made us a great economic power in short order, but in exchange, we abandoned our revolutionary goals, the creation of a political, social, and economic democracy. The problem, as Catherine points out, is that corporate influence in Washington, those incestuous relationships, also known as crony capitalism, became entrenched in Washington under Hamilton's economic plan, and it got worse. By the end of the Civil War, political and corporate corruption in America had become so rampant that Abraham Lincoln feared for the future of our democracy. Toward the end of chapter 3, Catherine sums it up, saying that today corporate and political leaders preach a conveniently edited version of Adam Smith to keep us from demanding restraints on the powerful special interests at the top of the ladder. Plenty of other nerds have pointed out how Adam Smith's principles, like capitalism and free market, have become nothing more than sick joke catchphrases used by rich elitist a-holes and their politicians in Washington to justify policies purely designed to make the rich richer, and of course more powerful. Catherine ends off chapter 3 saying, American capitalism has morphed into a sort of dog-eat-dog economic Darwinism, and the big dogs have rigged the game in their favor. There is yet another term that nerds use to describe corrupted Adam Smith capitalism: corporatism, American-style British mercantilism, neoliberal economics, and economic Darwinism. She ends off saying, we can't make sense of our modern predicaments without understanding the impact that corporations have had on our economic freedoms, national policies, and democratic values. Which will bring us into chapter 4, entitled The Rise of the Corporation, which I'll cover next time. I don't know if Catherine titled it after the third Terminator movie, The Rise of the Machines, because it kind of reminded me of that. I don't want to think of Catherine as a science fiction geek like me, so I choose to believe that it was just a coincidence. Either way, cool chapter title. I'll be back covering chapter 4, Rise of the Corporation. Hasta la vista, baby. If you like this video, why not click the like button? I'll put a link to the next episode over here.